I died the way any self-respecting office worker would, with a latte in my hand and a to-do list I would never complete. The cup was hot against my palm, a small comfort in the morning chill that turned the mirrored facade of Kestrel Dynamics into a sheet of pale sky. People flowed around me like a tide, heels, badges, the clack of ambition. Somewhere above, the building's logo gleamed like a silver wing. I caught my reflection in the glass, hair half tamed, blazer pretending I had slept, a smile that said, "We're fine. We're always fine." A horn screamed. Rubber burned. My stomach pitched. The world jerked in a series of snapshots. A delivery van swerving when a cyclist cut the light, the driver overcorrecting, the curb racing toward me, my finger tightening on the cardboard sleeve. The latte leapt like a misguided acrobat. I tasted foam and shock. People shouted my name, maybe it was just the building swallowing sound. Pain came like a bright, tidy line across my ribs and then unspooled, as if someone pulled the world's thread through me. Silence. I was standing. That was the first impossible thing. I was standing in front of the same mirrored wall, except the glass wasn't glass anymore. It was water, black and still, reflecting the city in pure lines. My body lay on the concrete a step behind me, curled as if I decided to nap on a Tuesday. A circle of strangers formed, their mouths moving. One of them dialed, one of them cried, one of them stared at the van driver as if he could rewind time with guilt alone. Inside the lobby, through the water glass, I saw Julian. Julian Park, my used-to-be, tall, clean-cut, with a navy suit and a smile that had once looked like safety. He leaned over the front desk with Seline, our creative director and my ex-idol. The sort of woman who could sharpen a pencil and a person in the same motion. They were laughing. You can always tell when people are laughing about something they shouldn't be. Their eyes keep flicking toward the exit. Seline lifted a tablet, the one with my prototype, my color stories, my motion language, my stupid tiny flourish on the hover states that I had stayed up all weekend perfecting. Julian's smile tipped into a private thing, the kind that says, "We did it." He curled an arm around her waist. Quick, proprietary, the kind you hide from security cameras and interns. The air tasted like pennies. I heard myself say. Except it was the kind of sound you make when you set down a glass and it keeps vibrating. That's new. You're handling this impressively. The voice came from behind me, mild and amused and a little bored, as if he always arrived at scenes like this right after the clapping stopped. Most people scream first, or attempt a haunting. You'd be surprised how often boo comes up. I turned. He was leaning against nothing, which is more unnerving than it sounds. Tall, draped in a dark coat that did not catch the light, with silver eyes that looked like city rain in the early afternoon. An hourglass sat on his palm, hovered above it, its sand bright as coins, falling in a slow ribbon. He looked at me the way a lifeguard looks at a wave, appraising, patient, not particularly invested unless I started drowning. "Let me guess," I said. "You're HR." "Not exactly." He tilted the hourglass, the sand curved midair and continued falling. "Kai, is that your job title, or your name?" "Both, in a way." He glanced at my not body. "Lia Han, 26, designer, chronic believer in the grace of last-minute miracles. You were very close to one. Your driver would have braked a half-second earlier if not for the cyclist, and your coffee would have survived. You had notes, bullet points." He arched a brow. "Very neat bullet points." I wanted to be offended. Mostly I was exhausted. How long do I have before I move on, or pass through a tunnel, or, what's the term, buffer wheel of fate? "That depends," he said. The lobby reflection shifted. Julian and Celine's laughter became lines of light, sliding like fish through dark water. "On whether you accept my offer, which is..." Kai lifted his free hand, and the silent city folded. The mirrored wall rippled and I fell forward, not into glass but into a vast hall, if a hall could be sky. Blackness stretched in every direction, like velvet and midnight oil. The floor, if it was a floor, reflected the starless dome above us so perfectly that it made my stomach drop. In the distance, a forest of hourglasses shimmered, tall as buildings, their sands cascading with the precise hush of snowfall. The air smelled like old paper and rain. Somewhere beyond the dark horizon, something sang one long pure note that made the small bones in my ears ache. At the center stood a single marble plinth, with a small, silver hourglass. This one did not hum or glow. It just waited. "Welcome," Kai said, voice echoing without echoing, "to the part of the process where we stop pretending you had a normal day." Was I pretending? "You're very good at it." I inhaled, too sharply, and the hall shifted to accommodate the sound, as if the world was polite. "Okay, well, Kai, you seem like a reasonable hallucination. What are my options?" "The usuals," he said. "Move on, dissipate, sit and watch your ex and your ex-idol present your work and nickname it after themselves." He nodded at the small hourglass. "Or you can go back." Something broke in my chest that wasn't physical. The words rushed out before my fear could strangle them. "Back how far?" "1 year." He studied me, and it felt like being measured for a very particular suit. "With a condition." "Of course there's a condition. Marketing never gives out free samples." He almost smiled. "You'll carry a portion of an old force. It feeds on certain frequencies: betrayal, hypocrisy, greed, the cheap currency of office politics, among other places." The silver in his eyes flickered. "It will give you leverage. It will make you see things you can't unsee. Use it carelessly, and it will take more than it gives." I looked at my hands. They were steady. It felt wrong that they were steady. My life outside this place, the world of emails and drafts and coffee runs, suddenly seemed like a game I had been losing without knowing the rules. "Why me?" "Because you were already standing on the fulcrum," Kai said softly. "Because you were going to break one way or another. This is a chance to choose where the fracture runs. And what do you get? Professionally?" He flicked a speck of non-existent dust from his sleeve. "Stability. The force prefers hosts who can carry it with a degree of wit." He considered me. "Personally, I get to be less bored." "You're admitting that to a client?" "You're not a client," he said. "You're a story with 2 possible endings. I am, if nothing else, an avid reader." I laughed. It came out thin and sharp. "If I say no?" He tipped the small hourglass. A single grain fell, chiming. "You won't." "I hate that you're right." I rubbed my thumb over the ridge of my forefinger, a nervous habit that always left a pink crescent. Even here, my skin obeyed. "Rules?" 3 that matter." He lifted the hourglass from the plinth and placed it in my hands. It was cool, heavier than it looked. 1. The force amplifies what it feeds on. Be precise about the lies you take aim at, or it will eat you from the soft parts inward. 2. You can nudge, reveal, redirect, but not rewrite the bones of the world. And 3. Don't lie to yourself. He met my eyes. "That one makes monsters." "Is that what you are?" I asked before I could stop myself. He didn't flinch. "Not today." For a breath, one long, quiet, impossible breath, I let myself see it. The morning sun on the mirrored glass, the cafe across the street, where Mina and I used to argue about fonts, the presentation where my work would become someone else's triumph, the version of me who nodded and smiled and said we're fine. I felt the familiar coil of resentment and grief, and underneath it, a stubborn, ridiculous hope. I closed my fingers around the hourglass. "Fine," I said. "Let's try not being fine." The hall brightened, not with light, but with attention. The silver sand inside the glass sparked. Far away, the forest of hourglasses lifted a collective breath. "One more thing," Kai said, stepping closer. His coat brushed the edge of my vision like a shadow that had practiced for years. "The force has preferences. It will like you best when you are honest about what you want. What I want is to delete Julian's smile." "That's a start." His mouth curved, warmer than his eyes. "Are you ready, Lia Han?" "No," I said. "But I'll go anyway." The hourglass turned itself in my hands. The sand reversed. The note in the distance rose until it was a thread of light and then snapped. The marble plinth, the black sky, the patient, standing hourglasses, all of it folded like a page. Cold air. Sirens. The sting of coffee against my lip. I opened my eyes to a different morning. The ceiling fan clicked overhead like a lazy metronome. My eyes opened to white paint peeling in the corner above my bed, the faint smell of dust and last night's half-eaten ramen in the air. My apartment. Not the black hall. Not the mirrored building. Not the sidewalk with my body on it. I sat up so fast my spine cracked. The window across the room let in morning light that made everything look like it had been holding its breath. The pile of laundry slumped. In the chair, the half-dead plant on the windowsill, my laptop balanced on the coffee table with sticky notes like falling leaves. My apartment had always been a little chaotic, like it was rented by someone who might skip town any day. But it was my chaos. I grabbed my phone from the floor. The date glared up at me, 1 year earlier. My stomach dropped. Kai hadn't been exaggerating. I stumbled to the mirror by the door. Same brown eyes, same unruly hair, same 26-year-old face with the faint smudge under one eye because I'd gone to bed with makeup on again. Except, there was something sharper around the edges, like someone had adjusted the contrast on the whole world. I remembered the van, the coffee, Julian's arm around Seline, the forest of hourglasses. The doorbell rang. I froze. Lia? Julian's voice floated in, warm as ever, the one that used to make me believe in weekends and wine and the idea that two people could be a team instead of a chess game. Hey, you awake? I brought bagels. Of course he did. I opened the door. Julian Park stood there with that same perfect smile, hair neat, shirt crisp, holding a paper bag like some advertisement for Boyfriend of the Year. His eyes crinkled just right when he smiled. I used to love that. Now it looked like stage lighting. Hey, you okay? He asked, leaning in to kiss my cheek like we were still us. I stepped back before he could. Fine, I said too quickly. His smile wavered. Just for a second. Then it was back. All easy charm and breakfast carbs. You're pale, he said, walking in like he owned the place. He set the bag on the counter, looked around at my messy apartment the way he always did, half amused, half judgmental. Big day at work, huh? Celine's expecting magic from you as usual. Seline. Right, my old idol. The woman who ran the creative floor like a queen with perfect eyeliner. The woman who would, in less than a year, steal my project and my boyfriend in one efficient sweep. I grabbed a sweater from the couch and pulled it on. Yeah, I said, voice steady. Big day. I wasn't going to let it happen again. The office lobby looked exactly as I remembered it. Glass walls, polished. Concrete. Air conditioning cold enough to keep fruit fresh. People moved fast, all heels and tablets and lanyards. Julian walked beside me, talking about some pitch I wasn't listening to. My eyes kept catching on details I hadn't noticed before. The way he smirked when people complimented my ideas, the way his hand brushed Celine's when she passed us near the elevators. Seline didn't look at me. She never did, not really. Too busy, too precise. Her hair twisted into a knot so sharp it could probably cut glass. When she talked, people listened. When she smiled, men like Julian followed her like moths toward a clean corporate flame. Morning, Lia, she said without slowing down, voice smooth as the marble floor. Morning, I muttered. Last time, I would have straightened my shoulders, eager for approval. This time, I just watched her go, wondering how many little betrayals it took to build a woman like that. By noon, I was staring at my reflection in the office window, 20 floors up, coffee cooling on the desk behind me. The city sprawled below, steel and glass and traffic glittering in the sun. That one's ambitious, a voice said. I didn't turn. Kai leaned in the corner of the reflection like he'd been there all along, coat dark as a shadow that had learned to talk. People passed behind me in the real office, none of them saw him. First day back, he said mildly. How's the nostalgia tour? Haunting, I muttered. He smirked. That's my line. I crossed my arms. Why can I see you in the window and not out here? Because I'm not out there, he said simply. Consider me a reflection of your better judgment, or worse, depending on the hour. I turned then. He wasn't in the room. Only in the glass, silver eyes bright against the city sky. You should know the rules, Kai said. The force you carry, it feeds on emotion, Lies, betrayal, greed. The usual human buffet. That's where your leverage comes from. Leverage for what? For whatever you want, he said. Truth, revenge, power, a better parking spot. It doesn't judge, but it changes what it touches. Including you. I watched my own reflection, the faint glow around my eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. Or last year, or whatever this was. What kind of changes? I asked. Kai tilted his head. The kind you can't undo. Below us, the city kept moving. Loud and hungry and full of people who smiled while they lied. I touched the window's cold surface and made myself a promise. This time, I wouldn't be one of them. By the time the sun dropped behind the glass towers, the city had traded its daytime mask for one stitched from neon and exhaust. I found Kai leaning against the park's iron gate, like a shadow that had forgotten it wasn't supposed to talk. The streetlights carved his coat into sharp edges, his silver eyes caught every passing car's headlights like coins at the bottom of a well. You're late, I said, pulling my jacket tighter. You died, he said dryly. We all have scheduling issues. I rolled my eyes and stepped through the gate. The park smelled like wet grass and pretzels from the cart by the corner. Office workers cut across it on their way home, faces lit by phones, shoulders heavy with deadlines. Kai followed me down the path, hands in his pockets, looking like he had all the time in the world, and no real use for it. Let's talk about the rules, he said. The power you carry isn't subtle. It feeds on strong emotions. The messier, the better. Like betrayal, I said. Exactly. Or envy, lies, secrets, all the things people wrap in polite smiles. He nodded toward a man on a bench arguing on the phone. Watch. I glanced at the man. His suit was expensive, his voice low and sharp, the kind you use when you don't want to wake the kids but want your spouse to know you're angry. And then I saw it. Just a faint glow around him, like heat above asphalt. Red flickers pulsed near his chest, coiling tighter every time his voice rose. I gasped. Okay. That's new. Kai's grin was quick and not entirely kind. You're seeing it. The energy. Betrayal always leaves fingerprints. I turned in a slow circle. Around the park, people walked under the streetlights with faint colors, licking at their edges, blue for the tired woman with a stroller. Gray smudges clinging to the man texting behind a tree, a bitter yellow, haze curling off two teenagers trading gossip by the fountain. It was like putting on glasses and realizing the world had been out of focus your whole life. It's everywhere, I whispered. Kai nodded. And the more you witness it, the stronger you become. Truth is exhausting, but lies? He tilted his head, amused. They're fuel. The next morning I sat in the office cafe with my usual coffee and tried very, very hard to look normal. Normal people didn't see colors bleeding off their coworkers like bad mood rings. Normal people didn't feel the pull of whispered half-truths 3 tables away. Morning, Lia, said Mark from accounting, dropping into the seat across from me. Mark was harmless. He wore sweater vests unironically, and once brought cupcakes for the entire floor on his birthday. Today, though, he had a faint green shimmer curling off him like cigarette smoke. I squinted. Everything okay? He froze, mid-sip. Sure, why? I don't know. I leaned forward, curious. Anything you want to admit? It slipped out before I could stop it. A little push, like leaning on a door to see if it was locked. Mark blinked. His aura flared bright green. Fine. He blurted, too loud. I'm the one who's been stealing the hazelnut creamer from the staff fridge. The cafe went dead silent. Someone by the counter choked on their muffin. Mark slapped both hands over his mouth. I didn't mean to say that. I bit the inside of my cheek, fighting a grin. Wow, Mark. That's brave. I knew it, muttered the barista. Mark stood so fast his chair screeched. He fled the cafe like a man chased by dairy-based demons. Kai's reflection appeared in the window beside me, silver eyes laughing. Careful, he murmured. The truth is addictive. People rarely thank you for ripping it out of them. I stirred my coffee, trying not to smile. He'll survive? For now, Kai said. By afternoon, I was starting to feel it, the hum under my skin, like my whole body had become a tuning fork for secrets. Every whispered complaint in the hallway, every fake smile in the break room added to the current coiling inside me. And then Julian appeared. "Hey," he said, leaning on my desk like we hadn't broken up in another timeline. "You're hard to catch these days." I forced a neutral smile. "Busy week." He looked good. He always did. Sharp jaw, easy grin, the kind of charm that made you forget to check the fine print. If I hadn't seen him with Seline in that mirrored lobby, if I didn't know what was coming, I might have fallen for it all over again. But now I saw it. A faint yellow flicker curling off him, thin as cigarette smoke. Guilt? Lies? Maybe both. Julian reached out, brushing his hand against mine like it was casual. "We should grab dinner sometime, like old times." I pulled back before the contact could settle. "Maybe," I said lightly. Inside, the power thrummed like a cat stretching its claws. It wanted the truth out of him. It wanted to drag every secret into the light. Not yet. Julian smiled, not noticing the shift in my eyes or the way my voice had gone cool. But I noticed. And so did Kai, watching from the reflection in my monitor, silver eyes bright as coins. That night, I walked home through streets buzzing with neon and sirens. Every passerby wore a faint glow now, reds and yellows, envy blues, sour greens, like the whole city had turned into a stained glass window made of lies. Kai appeared beside me, matching my steps though no one else seemed to see him. "You feel it, don't you?" he said. I shoved my hands in my pockets. "It's like static under my skin." "Good," he said simply. "You're learning the rules." I stopped under a streetlight, watching the colors flicker around strangers hurrying past. "And if I break them?" Kai smiled slowly. "Then the game breaks you back." The wind carried the smell of rain and car exhaust. Somewhere above the rooftops, thunder rolled like distant applause. I wondered, not for the first time, if I was in over my head. By Saturday morning, my apartment looked like a war had been fought between work deadlines and laundry baskets. I sat cross-legged on the couch, staring at the faint glow on my hands, like the aftertaste of lightning. The city outside the window buzzed with traffic and weekend plans. Then came the knock. "Lia?" I brought bribes. The door flew open before I could answer, because Mina Kim believed in friendship over boundaries. She swept inside in a tornado of perfume and noise, holding 2 giant iced coffees and a paper bag that smelled like croissants. Mina was 5'3" of pure chaos. Today she wore bright yellow sneakers, a denim jacket covered in enamel pins, and an expression that suggested she'd either won the lottery or started a small fire for fun. "You look like someone who needs carbs," she announced, dropping the bag on my coffee table, right on top of the unpaid bills. "I look fine," I protested. "You look like you saw a ghost." Close enough, I thought. We ended up in our favorite cafe, the one with cracked leather booths and an espresso machine that wheezed like it had survived 2 world wars. Mina stirred her coffee aggressively. "So," she said, leaning in, "are we finally discussing why you've been weird all week? Because I have theories. Do I want to hear them? 1. You joined a cult. 2. You discovered yoga and inner peace. 3. You joined a yoga cult." She pointed her straw at me. "Blink twice if it's number 3. I laughed before I could stop myself. It felt strange. Like my ribs hadn't remembered how until now. "It's not yoga," I said. "I just have perspective now." Mina narrowed her eyes. "Perspective, or a secret boyfriend?" I choked on my coffee. "Ha! It's a boyfriend. It's not, Mina, no. Seriously." She smirked like she didn't believe me but let it drop, because that was Mina. Equal parts relentless teasing and unconditional support. I almost told her everything, the death, the deal, the way people glowed with secrets now. But the words stuck. Not yet. Julian showed up that afternoon like fate had a bad sense of humor. We were leaving the cafe when his familiar car pulled up to the curb. He stepped out looking like a magazine ad for casual charm, navy sweater, rolled sleeves, the smile that used to make my knees soft. "Lia," he said warmly. "Hey." I've been trying to catch you. Mina glanced between us with the expression of someone about to witness free drama with her latte. Julian's gaze softened like we were in some romantic movie. You haven't been answering my texts. I was worried. I could see it now, the faint yellow haze curling around him, the threads of self-interest stitched into every word. Worried because he was losing his backup plan. Because Seline wasn't ready to risk her reputation yet. Because Julian Park never did anything without an angle. I've been busy, I said lightly. His brow creased. Busy with what? I almost laughed. With my life, Julian. Remember that? He looked taken aback, like I'd delivered the line wrong in the script he'd written in his head. I care about you. The glow around him pulsed darker, like even the air knew it was a lie. Mina made a small choking noise that might have been a suppressed laugh. I stepped closer so only he could hear me. Here's the thing, Julian, I said softly. I can tell when people are lying now. He blinked. What? Nothing, I said with a smile that wasn't one. For the first time since I'd met him, Julian didn't know what to say. Back at the office on Monday, the air felt different. Maybe it was me. I walked into the glass and concrete lobby like I belonged there, not like I was waiting for someone to pull the rug out from under me. My reflection in the polished floor looked taller somehow. Seline noticed. She always noticed everything. The creative director stood by the elevators, tablet in hand, black heels sharp enough to count as weapons. Her gaze swept over me like a scanner, calculating. Morning, Lia, she said. There was no warmth in it. There never was. Morning, I replied evenly. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if she could sense the shift, the steadiness, in my shoulders, the way I didn't rush to please anymore. I wondered if she felt me watching the faint gray haze clinging to her like cigarette smoke, ambition thick enough to choke on, secrets folded under perfect eyeliner. For the first time, I didn't feel small under her stare. For the first time, I wanted to see what would happen if I pushed back. Mina called that evening while I walked home under the city's flickering streetlights. So, she said, are we going to talk about Julian looking like someone stole his favorite toy today? Because that was art. I grinned into the phone. Let's just say he's not the only one who can play games. Mina whistled. Remind me never to get on your bad side. Don't steal my coffee creamer and you'll be fine. She laughed, bright and unbothered. And for a moment the city felt almost ordinary, again, just friends, caffeine, and streetlights humming like tired bees. But the glow around strangers still whispered at the edge of my vision. And somewhere in the glass of a darkened shop window, Kai's reflection watched. Silver eyes unreadable, like he knew the real game hadn't even started yet. The main hall at Kestrel Dynamics looked like it had been designed by someone. With too much money and not enough hobbies. Polished glass walls. Rows of white chairs facing a stage big enough for a TED Talk, spotlights, bright enough to reveal every bad haircut in the audience. At the center, the screen. 70 inches of corporate ambition, ready to showcase the work that had eaten a year of my life. Or, according to Julian and Seline, their work. I sat in the back row, legs crossed, coffee in hand, pulse steady in a way that felt almost criminal. The faint current of the power hummed under my skin like a half-remembered song, waiting. Julian stood near the podium, rehearsing his smile in the reflection of the projector. Perfect hair, perfect suit, perfect lie. Seline reviewed her notes beside him, expression cool and sharp, the queen of this glass castle. The audience buzzed. Executives in tailored suits, junior staff clutching notepads. The kind of people who used phrases like, synergy without irony. Cameras waited near the front row to record the whole thing for the company archives. I sipped my coffee and let them all wait. Julian started with the kind of confidence only stolen credit can buy. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, voice smooth enough to sell toothpaste, today we're proud to present a project that represents months of innovation, collaboration, and vision. My innovation, my collaboration, my vision. Seline took over, heels clicking against the stage like punctuation marks. This product is the future of user experience design. Clean, intuitive, revolutionary. She said it like she'd sketched it on a napkin between martinis, instead of stealing it off my hard drive. I leaned back in my chair. The glow around them was blinding now, yellow from Julian, sharp gray from Seline, pulsing with ambition and betrayal. My fingers tightened on the coffee cup. The power stirred, hungry. They moved to the first slide, wireframes I'd drawn at 2 a.m., with cold pizza on my desk. Applause rippled through the hall. I smiled slowly. Showtime. The lights flickered. Just once. A polite warning. Julian clicked to the next slide. The screen froze. He frowned, clicking again. The slide didn't change. Instead, a folder icon appeared in the corner of the screen. A folder that wasn't part of the presentation, the audience murmured. Seline stepped forward, her smile tightening. Just a technical glitch, she said smoothly. The folder opened itself. A list of audio files appeared, names like conferenceroom.march and Julian Seline private. The first file started playing before anyone could stop it. She'll never see it coming. Julian's voice drawled through the speakers, echoing across the hall. We present it first. It's ours. That's how this works. Gasps scattered like popcorn in the audience. Julian went pale. That's out of context, he stammered. Another file began. Celine's voice this time low and amused. She's talented, sure. But talent doesn't win, timing does. And we're the ones with the timing. Laughter bubbled somewhere in the back row. Turn it off. Seline snapped at the tech team, but the crew looked bewildered. The system wasn't responding to them. The screen switched to emails. Lines of text enlarged themselves for the entire room to read. Delete her access after Friday. She's too naive to notice. We take credit. She'll survive. The audience had gone silent except for the furious clack of someone's phone recording everything. I sat very still, feeling the power purr under my skin. Julian tried to recover. This is clearly some sort of hack, he said, sweating under the lights. A misunderstanding. The next file played. Julian again, impatient this time. Relax. She's too busy doing the work to realize we're taking the credit. Even the executives in the front row turned to stare at him. Celine's mask cracked first, just a flicker, but enough. Her composure slipped like a heel on ice. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, voice tight. This is a deliberate attempt to sabotage. The screen cut her off with a final message in bold white letters. They lied. Silence fell, thick and absolute. Someone in the audience coughed. Cameras clicked like gunfire. Julian's mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. Seline stood frozen, the queen suddenly dethroned under fluorescent lights. I rose from my seat, smoothed my jacket, and walked down the aisle as the murmurs swelled into open laughter. Julian caught sight of me then, realization dawning. His eyes widened. I raised my coffee cup in a tiny salute. Outside the hall, the noise erupted behind me. Shouts, questions, the furious scramble of two people watching their reputations collapse in real time. Kai leaned against the lobby window, silver eyes bright with amusement. Subtle, he said dryly. I shrugged, heart hammering but steady. They wanted attention. I gave them attention. He studied me for a long moment. You should know, the more you feed it, the more it feeds on you. I met his gaze in the glass. I'm fine. Everyone says that, he murmured. Right before they're not. By the time I reached the elevator, my phone was already buzzing with messages. From Mina, from half the office, even from numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them all. The doors slid shut. For the first time in a year, or two depending on how you counted, I felt light, victorious, and just a little afraid of how easy it had been. Rain slicked the rooftop in sheets of silver, turning the city below into a watercolor of neon and glass. Streetlights blurred like smudged halos. The hum of traffic rose and fell in the distance, a restless animal pacing the dark. I stood near the edge, wind tugging at my jacket, power humming low and sharp under my skin like it was waiting for the next lie to eat. After the presentation fiasco, the office had exploded. Rumors, accusations, executives whispering in hallways like kids passing notes in class. Julian and Seline had vanished behind closed doors with HR. Mina had texted me 17 times, half of them with celebratory emojis, the other half asking if I'd hacked the Pentagon. But, under the glow of victory, something colder had settled in my chest. I should have felt satisfied. Instead, I felt hollow. You used it too much. Kai's voice came from behind me, soft enough to almost be drowned by the rain. He leaned against the stairwell door, coat dark as spilled ink, silver eyes catching the city's glow. He didn't carry an umbrella. Somehow he never got wet. I didn't turn. They deserved it. They did, he agreed. But the power doesn't care about justice. It only cares about more. I finally looked at him. You knew this would happen. He walked closer, boots splashing through shallow puddles. Of course I did. That's how the story always goes. The wind carried his words away too quickly. I shivered. Tell me, I said, how you know so much about this power. About what it wants. Kai stopped beside me, gaze on the city below like he was counting every lie flickering through the apartment windows. Because, he said after a moment, I made the same deal once. I turned fully then. Rain plastered my hair to my cheeks. You. He nodded, almost smiling. Long time ago. Different city, same human ambition. I thought I could control it. I thought I was clever. His mouth twisted around the word. I used it the way you did tonight. Exposure, revenge. The truth peeled open like fruit. It felt righteous at first. Addictive later. What happened? Kai's hands rested on the cold metal railing. For once, the usual smirk was gone. It doesn't stop with lies, he said quietly. It starts there because that's easy. But power like this? It likes to grow. It takes pieces of you. First the warmth, then the fear. Eventually, even the guilt. He exhaled slowly. One day I realized I couldn't remember the last time I cared whether people lived or died. I'd traded too much of myself away. The neon lights painted him in sharp edges, blue, red, white, as if the city couldn't decide what color his ghosts should be. So you became... what? Its servant? I asked. He shook his head. Its warden. Someone has to guide the next fool who picks it up. He looked at me then, and for the first time since I met him, the silver in his eyes looked tired. Congratulations, Lia. That's you. Rain drummed between us, steady as a clock. I wrapped my arms around myself. I'm not going to end up like you. Kai gave a short, humorless laugh. They all say that. I mean it. He studied me for a long moment, as if measuring whether I was worth arguing with. You remind me of... someone, he admitted finally. She made the same promise. For a while she even kept it. What happened to her? He didn't answer. That told me enough. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of ozone and the faint sweetness of wet asphalt. Down below, a billboard changed images, splashing the clouds with red light. I don't want to lose myself, I said, quieter than I meant to. Kai leaned on the railing, expression unreadable. Then set limits. Decide what lines you won't cross before the power decides for you. I thought about Julian's panic, Celine's frozen smile, the way the audience had turned on them like wolves. Part of me had loved it. Part of me had wanted more. What if it's already changing me? I asked. It is, Kai said simply. The question is, whether you can change back. For a while we just stood there, two silhouettes in the rain, watching the city breathe lies through 1,000 glowing windows. Under the sarcasm and shadows, I caught a glimpse of something raw in him, a man who had once believed, in second chances, maybe even in himself, before he lost whatever battle I had just begun to fight. The thought lodged under my ribs like a splinter. Why help me? I asked finally. If you think I'll end up like you. Kai's mouth curved, but it wasn't amusement this time. Maybe I want to see someone win for once. The rain hissed around us like it was keeping score. When I left the rooftop, the city felt heavier. The victory from earlier had drained to ash, leaving questions in its place. I didn't know if I was still steering this story, or if the power humming in my veins had already taken the wheel. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. Dawn slipped through my apartment windows in pale streaks, washing everything in colors too soft for the kind of night I'd had. The city outside was still half asleep, taxis gliding like tired beetles. storefronts yawning open, the air damp with last night's rain. I sat on the couch with cold coffee between my hands, waiting. The knock came exactly when I knew it would. Julian first, then Seline. They stood in my doorway like actors at the end of a play where everyone knew the villain's lines by heart. Julian with his practiced remorse, Seline with her polished composure cracked just enough to look human. "Lia," Julian began, voice warm with rehearsed regret. "We need to talk." "No," I said. He blinked. "Just hear us out." "Julian." I set the coffee down, stood, looked him straight in the eyes. "You lied, you stole. You let me burn while you took the credit." I heard every word. Seline tried to step in, her voice smooth as glass. "We made mistakes." "Mistakes?" I laughed, sharp and small. "That's what you call it?" Neither of them had glows anymore. Not the yellow of Julian's selfishness. Not the gray ambition clinging to Seline like smoke. Or maybe I just wasn't looking. I felt done. "You two can explain yourselves to the board, to HR, to whoever still cares," I said, grabbing my coat. "But not to me." Julian reached for my arm. "Lia, please." The power inside me stirred, sharp as a blade unsheathed. He froze before touching me, like some instinct warned him not to. "Goodbye, Julian," I said. I closed the door on both of them, the click of the lock final enough to echo. By the time the sun pulled itself fully over the skyline, I was on the roof again. Kai waited there like he'd been expecting me. Coat dark, eyes unreadable, the city's reflection caught in his silver irises. "You look," he said slowly, "like someone who made a decision." "I did?" He studied me, hands in his pockets. "Revenge all spent? No more villains left to unmask?" "Maybe," I admitted. The wind tugged at my hair, cool against my face. "But you're still bound to this thing, aren't you? The power?" He tilted his head. "Why?" "Because I see it," I said simply. "The way it pulls at you. The way you talk like someone watching life through a window he can't open." Something flickered in his eyes, there and gone. "You don't know what you're offering." "Then explain it to me." Kai walked closer, the dawn painting his coat in fire at the edges. "Freeing me means giving it back," he said softly. "The power. The leverage you've been using like a new toy. You can't keep it and free me both." The wind carried his words away, but the weight stayed. I thought about Julian's face when the recordings played. Celine's frozen smile. The audience turning on them. I thought about the way my pulse had pounded with something too close to pleasure. And I thought about Kai, his smirk, his warnings, the story of the woman who hadn't won her fight against this thing. "I don't want to end up like you," I said. Kai smiled faintly. "Then stop walking the same road." The choice wasn't hard. It should have been. Power always makes you think you can't live without it. But standing there, watching the sun push gold across the rooftops, I knew I was done letting this thing chew through pieces of me. "Tell me how," I said. Kai hesitated. "Lia, tell me." For the first time since I'd met him, he looked unsure. The man with all the sarcasm, all the half-smiles and cryptic advice, suddenly at a loss. Finally he stepped forward. "Call it," he said. "Give it back. It will listen to you now." For a little while, I closed my eyes. The power coiled in my chest like a living thing, restless, waiting. I thought the words more than I spoke them. "I'm done. Take it back. Let him go." The air tightened, sharp and electric. Kai sucked in a breath like he hadn't expected me to actually do it. Silver light bled from my hands, threads unspooling into the air, drawn toward him. His eyes widened as the glow wrapped around him like something alive sinking into the edges of his shadow. The bond between him and the power snapped with a soundless finality I felt in my teeth. Kai staggered. I'd never seen him stumble before. "Why?" he demanded, voice rougher than I'd ever heard it. "You could have kept it. You could have—" "I want my life back," I said. For a moment he just stared at me, rain from last night still dripping, off the edge of the roof behind him, sunlight cutting across his face. Then slowly he laughed, a low, unsteady sound, like someone surprised to find themselves alive. When I left the rooftop, the city below looked different. Not cleaner, not brighter. Just real. And for the first time, the silence in my chest felt like peace, not loss. The bell over the cafe door chimed as I pushed it open, sunlight spilling across the floor like it had been waiting just for me. Mina was already at our usual table, hair piled on top of her head like a crown she'd built out of chaos and bobby pins, a laptop open in front of her, and 3 empty coffee cups to her right. "You're late," she said, typing furiously. "You're caffeinated," I replied, sliding into the seat across from her. She grinned without looking up. Deadlines don't care about sleep. Or about me, apparently. Our new logo glowed on the screen between us, Han and Kim design, bold letters over, soft colors, the kind of branding Mina insisted looked trustworthy but cool. The kind clients would throw money at. 2 months ago, this had been a dream we whispered about between corporate meetings and vending machine lunches. Now it had an office with a coffee maker that only broke twice a week, and enough paying clients to keep the lights on. Mina leaned back, cracking her knuckles. 2 proposals due by Friday, 1 launch on Monday, and a client who keeps saying make it pop like that means anything. We're thriving. I laughed. A real one this time. We are. The city outside hummed with late morning traffic. People hurried past the windows with paper cups and purpose, the way I used to before everything tilted sideways. Somewhere out there, Julian and Seline had vanished into the kind of obscurity reserved for people who didn't fall dramatically, just slipped down the ladder one quiet rung at a time. I'd heard Seline took a job in another city. Julian tried freelancing, then stopped posting about it. There was no satisfaction in it anymore, no heat of revenge left in me. Just a faint, distant shrug. They were gone. I was still here. That was enough. The bell chimed again. Kai stepped in like he owned the sunlight. No coat that defied the rain, no silver eyes glinting like coins at the bottom of a dark river. Just a man in a gray t-shirt carrying 2 coffees and looking entirely, unsettlingly mortal. He set one in front of me with a flourish. "For the boss," he said. I eyed the cup. "Since when do you run errands?" "Since I got demoted from ominous supernatural guide to unemployed human," he said lightly, sliding into the seat beside me. Tragic, really. Used to be all shadows and cryptic warnings. Now I have to pay rent. Mina raised a brow. "Who's this?" "An old coworker," I said. "Old?" Kai echoed, mock offended. Mina smirked. "Uh-huh. I'll give you 2 some space before this gets weird." She grabbed her laptop and retreated to the counter, leaving us with caffeine and sunlight. Kai watched her go, then turned back to me. "You look different," he said. "Less haunted? More alive." He stirred his coffee, eyes catching the light like they were only eyes now, not something deeper. "Feels strange, doesn't it?" "What does?" "Being normal." I snorted. This from the guy who used to appear in reflective surfaces like a horror movie extra? He grinned. "Hey, I'm adjusting. I only spook people on weekends now." The easy banter felt new between us, not weighted down by bargains and shadows. "So," he said after a moment, "what's next for Lia Han? World domination? A line of morally judgmental coffee mugs?" I sipped my drink. "Just living, I think. Designing things, paying taxes, yelling at Mina to stop accepting clients who say make it pop." Kai leaned back in his chair, looking absurdly comfortable for someone who used to talk like every sentence was classified information. "Sounds reckless." "Terrifying," I agreed. Outside, the street filled with late spring sunlight and the smell of fresh bread from the bakery next door. A bus rumbled past, brakes squealing, scattering pigeons like confetti. Kai watched it all with quiet fascination, like someone tasting color for the first time. "You don't regret it?" he asked finally. "Giving it back?" I shook my head. "I thought I would. But no, even after what it gave you?" "It gave me headaches and moral dilemmas," I said. "And a very dramatic PowerPoint moment. That's enough excitement for one lifetime." Kai laughed softly, like someone testing out the sound. It fit him in a way the smirk never had. Mina returned, dumping a stack of receipts on the table. "Business expenses," she declared. "Also, we're out of printer ink. Again." Kai watched her whirl through the cafe like a 5-foot hurricane and leaned closer to me. She's terrifying, he murmured. She's effective, I said. She's both. He looked thoughtful. I like her. Mina glanced at us. I heard that. And you're buying the next round of ink cartridges, new guy? Kai held up his hands in surrender. Yes, ma'am. Later, when Mina left to battle the receipts and the cafe emptied out, we walked outside together. The street smelled like coffee and rain-washed pavement. People hurried past with phones and shopping bags. The world blissfully unaware that it had nearly become someone else's story. Kai fell into step beside me. So, he said, we're normal now. 9-to-5 jobs, bills, occasional dental checkups. Terrifying, I repeated. He glanced at me, mouth curving. We'll figure it out. It wasn't a promise, exactly. More like a dare. The sunlight caught on the cafe windows behind us, just glass now, no hidden reflections waiting to speak. For the first time the world felt ordinary. And I couldn't wait to live in it.